All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and thank you for joining me on this Friday for today's video and audio masterclass, where we're going to focus on mixing for all. And what I mean by that is that we have this incredible panel in Premiere Pro and Audition called the Essential Sound Panel. And this is going to allow you to perform a really awesome mix in Premiere, mixing dialogue, mixing music, sound effects, ambient sound, whatever it is, with really minimal knowledge of audio mixing. Now, the last 2 weeks we covered the basics and the fundamentals of navigating the different audio mixers, the track mixer, the clip mixer. And then I gave you some background info around how to use inserts and sends, and we talked a bit about those things. Well, today we're actually going to focus on doing a mix on a short film called Two Step. And it's just some very simple dialogue, but you're also going to see what happens when you integrate music and duck music underneath dialogue and really kind of create some drama. And again, you can do this really, really simply inside the Essential Sound Panel, even if you don't know anything about audio mixing at all. And the best thing about it is it's always fully editable, fully non-destructive, I almost said non-destructible, non-destructive, and you can even send the entire project to Audition if you wanted to do your audio finishing there and continue working, or you could send it to someone else to work on in Audition, and all of your Essential Sound settings would be retained. So super cool, super efficient. Now, unlike my daily streams, as I like to say here on Adobe Live, I will be reading the chats live, and we've got some of our esteemed mods in there as well, Tim and Jan Eric. Oh, and I can see my colleague Howard Pinsky is in there as well. He'll be coming up later today with the Adobe XD Masterclass. And thank you very much, Paul, for the handoff. So with that, why don't we go ahead and get started? A couple of quick hellos. Umar, Phil Graves, Aria, how are you doing, everybody? And of course, if you want to follow the conversation, you want to be right here on Behance. So let's go ahead and switch over. Go ahead and just switch my screen, and we will be good to go. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and just start by playing this session just so you can kind of hear what the raw version sounds like, unmixed, untouched. Also, if you want to kind of follow along, you'll notice that I am currently working in a slightly modified version to fit for the stream of the audio workspace. So this is the easiest way, and especially if you're a first-time user in Premiere, to access what is called the Essential Sound Panel, which you see up here in the top right. Now again, your UI may not look exactly like mine because mine's a little modified for the stream, but this is what you want to focus on. All right, now we're going to talk about that in a second. Let me just go ahead and play this back, and I'm first going to play a little bit of it without music, and then we'll add some of the music in there. But again, it's still unmixed. Nothing is balanced yet. Let's take a quick listen. Oh, and while I'm doing this, I'm actually going to work in headphones so that I can hear what you're hearing and that you are not distracted by my speakers. Okay, here we go. Let's play this back.
But Dwayne,
Oh, wait, I want to turn the music off. I just stole my own thunder. Okay, here we go.
But Dwayne, I don't even have any of the money. Amy she split and took it all.
Well, I talked to Amy. She came to see me. You see, she's what they call professional, and you're what they call can't win for losing.
She tell you she took it all? She took the whole damn score?
What she did is she paid me what she owed me for her half. And now you're going to pay me what you
But
owe me.
I didn't get any of the money. Why do I have to pay you if I don't get any of it?
Oh, you got it, Webb. You got it. You just lost it. You just lost it.
Okay, so already you can hear that it sounds pretty good. The dialogue is pretty clean, obviously, likely captured on set. As we get towards the end, there's a couple of clips that are replaced via a technique called ADR, which is dialogue replacement, so done after the fact. And a lot of times you do this on set because maybe there was a noise, or the boom holder bonked something and whatever. You replace dialogue a lot. It sounds good, but of course the levels are varied. They're getting excitable, so people get a little bit louder, a little bit quieter at times. Now listen to this same thing now, just with a little background music, because you're going to feel now suddenly like this is a pretty dramatic, dark scene. I don't know what score they're talking about here, but probably something not too legit. But with some added music in the background, now it starts to get real creepy. Take a quick listen to this now.
But Dwayne, I don't even have any of the money. Amy she split and took it all.
Well, I talked to Amy. She came to see me. You see, she's what they call professional, And you're what they call can't win for losing.
She tell you she took it all? She took the whole damn score?
What she did is she paid me what she owed me for her half. And now you're gonna pay me what you
But I didn't get any of the money. Why do I have to pay you if I don't get any of it?
Oh, you got it, buddy. You got it. You just lost it. You just lost it. And that ain't my fault. Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
Okay. All right. So you can already see now there's a bit more drama. It's a bit more just, there's something really now you're kind of feeling like you're in the scene, but it's very imbalanced, right? Obviously the music is too loud. That second track of music, it's kind of intentionally distorted, but it's just overall too much. So this is where now we're going to leverage Essential Sound to allow us to mix this with ease. All right. And this is super simple and something that anybody can do. All right. So the way that Essential Sound works is that it breaks down audio for video into the 4 common types that you will use, okay? First and foremost, dialogue, music, sound effects, and ambient sound. And these can kind of be interchangeable. You know, think of sound effects as maybe Foley, right? So like replacing footsteps or breathing or punches or whatever. This can also include other types of sound design like slurping on a coffee cup or whatever. And then ambience is just that. It's the environmental sound, okay? They're not strict rules on what you use or tag. It's just the idea that these are the 4 main types. Now, I mentioned tagging because that's actually how Essential Sound works. You're simply going to tell it the type of audio that you're working with, and then what it does is it reveals to you all of the common effects and filters that a person would use to process that type of audio. So let's start. So I have my dialogue, as you can see here in the Premiere Mixer. We've got 3 tracks of dialogue. So on tracks 1, 2, and 3, I'm simply going to marquee select across all of them and make sure that I get all of the spoken dialogue. And I'm going to come up to Essential Sound and click Dialogue, which will automatically tag these files as dialogue. And as promised, when you do that, now Essential Sound says, okay, here are the most common things that people use when mixing dialogue. So right at the top, we've got something called Loudness auto matching. So we're going to come back to that in a second. And then we have repair, and this includes all different types of things like reducing noise, reducing rumble, removing hum, right? 50 or 60 cycle hum. Sometimes you get that or bzz kind of thing happening. De-essing to remove sibilants or harsh S and P and T sounds if things are captured with, particularly sometimes with boom mics or very, very sensitive hypercardioid condensers. It can sometimes, depending upon the speaker, over-accentuate and it can feel like it's cutting through your eyes. De-essing will minimize that. It even says reduce harsh S-like sounds, and then reduce reverb. And this is one of those things where, again, in a situation like this, where maybe the room they're in was kind of reflective. You know, it's a kitchen, so it's probably tile. You know, probably untreated walls. So maybe you want to reduce or minimize some of that reflectivity, some of that echo or ambience. That's what that's for. All right. Followed then by clarity. Now, clarity is essentially a compressor limiter. A compressor limiter is what is used on all dialogue, on all voices and mixed recordings. And this is what evens out the dynamics when someone is speaking, right? So whether they're whispering, a la bedroom voice, or they're shouting, it's just kind of present, in your face, and even. Now, sometimes you want different dynamic levels. Go back to older films, you'll see that they're way more dynamic. Today, because of the way that we engage and sort of watch movies and kind of experience movies and music, we want everything kind of in your face. That's what keeps our attention, right? So we're going to use dynamics to do that. Something that's super hard to do manually. You see here, you've got one slider, it kind of does it all. Then you've got some basic equalization. All right, again, and you have some presets which you can leverage here to just change kind of the color of the voice, and you can specify these based on just different presets and different styles. Maybe it's a little bassier, maybe a little brighter, maybe a little more mid-rangey to bring out clarity. We've even got an enhanced speech function, which we'll give a try on later. And then the last one here is creative reverb. And this is used for if you have dialogue And let's say you have a lot of that replaced dialogue. So it was done in a studio in a very controlled environment. Well, if it's done in the studio, it's not going to sound like it was in a kitchen. So you can use creative reverb to effectively replace the sound of the room. And you can see you have something here called small dry room, or how to like thicken a voice in a room, a warm room, make the voices warm outside the club, which is going to give you kind of this sort of muffled kind of ambient sound. Church, auditorium, obviously these are very big reflective spaces, okay? We wouldn't use it for something like this. And then the last thing here is clip volume. So you can also do individual or global clip volume adjustments with a single slider here. Okay, so let's start up at the top, all right, and go to match loudness. And I'm just going to bounce over to the chat here real quickly. All right, Aria, yes, this is going to help you get more familiar with Premiere and give you some confidence for mixing your video masterpieces. Viola Villa, how are you doing? All right. I like how Howard says, clarity sliders, no matter the application, are always great. True that. Okay. So, loudness auto matching. This is one of my favorite things, and really, this is an essential part of kind of getting your mixes just started. Because you remember at the beginning, the first thing I said was, the dialogue was, it varied. It was fairly consistent, but it kind of jumped around a bit. Loudness auto matching samples, it analyzes all of the dialogue clips between different speakers, and it finds out the average level to make them all the same apparent loudness, right? So what this effectively does is so that you don't have one clip that's like, ah, and then another one that's just way too quiet. It just equalizes them so they're about the same perceived level of loudness. And that's a great way to start, particularly if you have multiple speakers and everyone speaks differently on mic. This is a great way to kind of make them all about the same. So you can see I still have all of the dialogue clips selected. By the way, to do global changes, which we're going to do here, if I click away, if I click out into the gray space in my timeline, you'll now see that I'm back to the Essential Sound panel, and the dialogue button is highlighted, telling me that I have media in that timeline tagged as dialogue. So with nothing selected, if I just click on dialogue, it now selects all the dialogue clips for me, because we're going to do this loudness auto match across all the dialogue clips. So let's go ahead and touch it. Touch it? Let's go ahead and click it. Tap it? No, we're not on an iPad. Okay. Go ahead and click Auto Match. And again, what it does is it non-destructively analyzes all of that dialogue. And what you'll see here is that it now tells you we have auto-matched to a target loudness of -23 LUFS, L-U-F-S, which stands for loudness units relative to full scale. Now, we're not going to get into the whole meaning of LUFS and what this measurement actually is. This also conforms to the European broadcast standard for overall program material. But again, essentially something you do need to be aware of when you're mixing and working with audio, especially in the digital domains, and you're delivering to places like YouTube or Vimeo or even Netflix or wherever, Amazon. We're not so much worried or concerned or really measuring in peak values anymore. Peaks are important, especially in the digital domain, because they can cause distortions and things. But we're really more concerned about that average loudness, that perceived loudness, right? Loudness is what attracts us. That's why movie trailers today are just, right? They're in your face because they conform to a particular loudness standard. So this makes the target loudness of all of this dialogue about the same. So if we just go ahead and wind this back, I'm just going to mute the music again for a moment. We don't need to hear the whole thing. We'll just kind of take it halfway. And now you should just hear that the dialogue all kind of sounds about the same volume.
And you're what they call can't win for losing.
She tell you she took it all? She took the whole damn score?
What she did is she paid me what she owed me for her half. And now you're going to pay me what you owe me.
But I didn't get any of the money. Why do I have to pay you if I don't get any?
All right. So you can already hear that it just sounds a little bit more balanced right away. Before that second, it was very, very loud. Now, yes, there's some room ambience differences. We'll take care of that. But again, that average loudness of all the dialogue clips now has been adjusted and effectively, I would say normalized, but that means something else, but just equalized across all of them. So they're all about the same. Okay, so now we've done loudness auto matching. Now, as far as the repair section goes, most of this dialogue is clean. So we're going to come back to that after we kind of continue on with some of the mixing. Most of these clips don't really require any noise reduction, and I would probably do those on a clip-by-clip basis. All right, so if we take a listen to this first clip here.
Yeah, Amy she split and took it all.
Sounds good to me. Let's go to the next one here.
She came to see me. You see, she's what they call professional.
Now this one you can hear there's more ambient sound. In fact, if you're listening with headphones or on speakers loudly at the moment, you'll hear like a car driving by.
What they call professional, and you're what they call can't win for losing.
All right. So again, now to keep this scene real, when we finish this mix, I would probably go back in and add some traffic noise, not like city traffic, but just just to kind of maintain that same feel. So you have an option at this point. Do I want to denoise this, or do I want to leave it as it is? Well, let's maybe just think about using some denoise right here. So I'm going to select this clip, and I'm going to turn on reduce noise. Now, again, you have a single slider here, more or less. Seems very simple. Now, a lot of people may think that this seems too simple, too simplified, that it's not any good. Incorrect. And I'll show you exactly why in a second. But let's test it out. So I'm going to start at 0 noise reduction, start playback, and then you'll see I'll gradually increase this over time. Let's take a listen.
Talk to Amy. She came to see me. You see, she's what they call professional, and you're what they call can't win for losing.
Oh, that sounds pretty awesome already. All right. So let's listen. Let's listen without. So here it is before.
Talk to Amy. She came to see me. You see, she's what they call professional.
All right, and now I'm going to play a little bit of it right after professional, and then I'm going to kick it in, and you'll hear it. It's just going to take all that ambient noise away without destroying the sound of the voice. Here we go.
Amy, she came to see me. You see, she's what they call professional, and you're what they call can't win for losing.
She tell you she took it all?
And now when it transitions to the next clip, it sounds even better because you don't have that sort of jarring to like totally silent, all right? Now, in terms of complexity, you see one slider, and I'm an audio engineer, so I must admit, when we first introduced this, I thought, is one slider enough? Is this really going to be functional? Can I really use messaging like, mix it with professional results? I need to know that that's really the case. Well, the answer is yes, and here's the reason why. If you go to the effects controls and you look at the audio section of your effects controls for this particular clip, what you will see is that when you apply these different filters in Essential Sound, it is applying them in real time, non-destructively, at the clip level. Okay? So it's applying noise reduction at the clip level. And if we go ahead and edit this, what you'll see is that this is in fact our new denoiser that we added a year and a half ago, replacing the previous adaptive noise reduction. So now you have access to all of the various parameters. Again, the amount sliders, these work in tandem. You can see as I'm dragging it here, it's adjusting the amount over there. You then have inside of this noise reduction some different processing curves. So this kind of applies noise reduction on all frequencies. This one, as you imagine, applies more to lower frequencies. So there was just kind of some, a lot of rooms sometimes are bassy or darker. You could do something like this, mids, lows and highs, and then just highs, okay? The key point being that you have access to all of the native original parameters of the effect at any time, but you never have to go here, all right? You can simply stay in Essential Sound and work that way, which is awesome, okay? So a little bit of noise reduction. Now we don't have any rumble or hum or essing or reverb reduction that's really necessary here. Maybe, let me see.
She took the whole...
No.
And now you're going to pay me what you...
All right, now this one too, this clip too, we could probably use a little bit of noise reduction. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn it on. Let's go to around 4.2 to keep it the same as the other. Let's play it back.
She paid me what she owed me for her half.
Off.
And now you're going to pay me what you...
But I didn't get any of the money. Why do I have to pay you if I don't get any?
Okay, yep, that works. Don't even need to change any more there. Go over here.
Lost it. And that ain't my...
This one, it's a little more subtle, so I'm going to turn it on, but maybe we'll back it off. Let's go to around 3 or in this case, it's 30%.
Lost it. And that ain't my fault.
Even a little bit less.
Lost
Try around to 1.9.
it. And that ain't my fault. Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it. Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
All right. This one here, you can see I'm only using, less, in this case, less than 10%. All right, about 8% of noise reduction. This clip, for whatever reason, probably a take at a slightly different moment in time. No cars going by, no sort of ambient noise getting captured. You can also tell that this was clearly boom mic'd because as he leans in, his dialogue volume gets a little bit louder. So this is where the next thing that I'm going to show you is going to take care of some of that and smooth some of those transitions out. All right, let's just finish listening to the last two clips here to see if we need any more repair on anything.
But I don't have the money. But that one I don't.
Okay, again, just a little bit of ambient noise, so let's go real subtle here. Let's do around 0.8 and see if that does it.
But I don't have the money. But I don't have the money.
Yep, all right, and the last one definitely needs some noise reduction. I could hear it already.
But I don't care.
Ooh, we get a double dose of cool things here because on this clip, again, if you're listening in headphones or on speakers with some bass, you hear some and what do we call that? Rumble.
But I don't. What? Don't. What?
Sounds like a very loud heartbeat there. Now, I can't promise that these two sliders are going to get rid of everything, but we're going to try. So first, let's kind of tackle that ambient noise. All right, let's turn on noise reduction. We'll just start at the default 50% here.
But I don't care.
Somebody was like hitting the boom mic stand. All right, and now let's wind it back and let's turn on reduce rumble. We'll just start at the default here.
But I don't care. But I don't care.
Okay, here it is without.
What? I don't care. What? Don't. What? Don't.
And here it is with.
What? I don't. What? I don't.
All right. It's still there. You still hear some the hits of the mic, but the which for me, I'm hearing like extreme sub gone. Okay? You have to listen for these things. Good listening environment helps. Good headphones help. Knowing the sound of your headphones helps a lot. But that's the key. If you didn't know what to do there, what would you do? You'd probably go into an equalizer. You'd probably make it sound worse, all right? If you don't know how to use an EQ, that's the key, is that this is what we've thought of in designing Essential Sound to make this essentially something that anybody can use, and we're going to give you all those tools front and center, all right? Let's check and see if we've got any questions in here, and then we will move on, all right? All right, what's up, Phil Graves? Hello from Slovenia. Shahid from Pakistan. Thank you, Brandon. All right. Diego Ibanez, when do you recommend Premiere Rush over Premiere Pro? You know, Diego, Premiere Rush, I would say, if you're wanting to stay in the mobile environment, Premiere Rush is is the option for that. It also integrates directly with Premiere, so you can open Rush projects. You can also open Premiere Clip projects, but you can open Rush projects directly in Premiere Pro. It just depends on the level of complexity. Now, Premiere Rush, by the way, has some of what I'm going to show you here, particularly the auto ducking that I'm going to show when we add the music back in, which automatically levels or lowers the volume of music when there's dialogue speaking. So it's using some of the Essential Sound stuff, which is Adobe Sensei AI based. So it just depends on the complexity of your edits. You know, of course, there's Rush Desktop too. So if you only need 4 tracks of video and really simple implementation, it has the basic controls panel for Lumetri Color, which we covered the first 2 weeks here. So it's a great way to get started, you know? And then as you move up and you're like, all right, I've hit because you will hit a ceiling eventually. It only does so much. Then you can transition directly to Premiere Pro. So I would give him a shot. It just really depends on your level of proficiency. And if you're completely new to editing, Rush is a great place to start. All right? Cool. Howard Pinsky, I gave you the script. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it. Every design client ever. I love it. All right. I like how Jan Eric is saying, even expensive shows like Game of Thrones, I can see a boom mic slightly in the shot. Yes, and let's not forget, last year also Starbucks Cup, which yours truly was responsible for removing, and that was one of several viral posts we had on our Adobe Facebook page and stuff, okay? All right. Jan Eric wants a beer. Okay, Diego, thank you. All right, cool. All right, so let's move on. So now we've loudness matched, we've repaired everything. Now is where we're going to, now this is where this panel here is worth the money you're paying, all right? This next feature. So once again, notice I deselected everything so that I can only select dialogue, all right? And we're gonna focus now on the clarity slider, all right? Now again, for those of you new to this applies dynamic compression, all right? To voices in this case, right? And compression allows you to control the dynamic range of your dialogue, right? So if you have a lot of peaks that are, maybe someone says, I don't know what right? They have like these moments where they have transient bits that are louder. It can squash those loud bursts down. If you have quieter bits, it can bring those quieter bits up. And without having to explain all of that deeply, you can see that we've broken it down by more natural, i.e. less clarity, less focus, to a very present and focused sound. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow, in the case of adding music, it's going to let your dialogue sit right on top of that music track. Now, I'm going to show you something else, which is auto ducking, which is going to do even more of that for us. But now that we've cleaned up everything, I'm going to unmute the music tracks because this is going to be kind of cool. You'll be able to hear really what clarity is doing. So let's go ahead and enable this, and let's drag it all the way to the left. So again, I'm doing this across all of the dialogue clips. Now you might be asking, do you have to do this across all clips all the time? No, of course not. Just as we individually treated noise reduction on individually selected clips, you can do this that way as well. Because most of this dialogue is fairly the same, and auto match has already been performed. So remember, we've already done some work here to kind of level things out so they're kind of similar already. That's why I'm using this that's why I'm doing this across all the clips. You of course have the option to apply it, one by one, or apply it to everything in one step, but then tweak it individually. And realistically, you're probably going to do a bit of that anyway, all right? I would be lying to you if I said, nope, select everything, one slider does it all, done. You might get that lucky, but probably you'll go back and tweak little things here and there. That's just the difference between a super pro level audio mix and, slightly below, all right? Individual tweaking. Anybody, look, Paul was just, working in Photoshop, and it's all those little subtle tweaks, like, a little bit more light bleed through. I'll paint just a little bit more of a shadow here. Control contrast. It's no different with audio, right? You're going to go back and tweak little things, but this is going to get us there a little bit faster, okay? So we'll start with virtually no dynamic compression, and then I'm going to drag it more towards focus. And what you're going to see is it's just going to start to lift those voices and push them forward without the troublesome artifacts that would occur if you set a compressor limiter manually and didn't know what you were doing. Before I show it, just one last thing. Compression is one of the most difficult things to understand and perform properly if you are not an audio engineer. It's that simple. It's not unlike true color grading. It's not unlike, working with light in images. You really need to understand the concept of it to make it sound good. Here, one slider does it, and it does it really, really, really well. Okay? So let's take a listen. Here we go.
But Dwayne, I don't even have any of the money. Amy she split and took it all.
Well, I talked to Amy. She came to see me. You see, she's what they call professional, and you're what they call can't win for losing.
So let's turn it off. Ready?
She tell you she took it off? She took the whole
Off?
damn score?
What she did is she paid me what she owed me for her half. And now you're gonna pay me what you
But I didn't get any of the money. Why do I have to pay you if I don't get any of it?
Oh, you got it, Liv.
Okay. And we can go even more extreme.
You just lost it. You just lost it. And that ain't my fault. Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
Okay. I keep ending right there. So could you see how we were just lifting the voices and pushing them forward? Now, if you were setting this manually and you didn't know what you were doing, a common artifact of applying compression is something that's called pumping and breathing. So what happens is when someone stops talking, the compressor, if set incorrectly, continues to compress the background ambience and noise, and you get this like, "Hi, I'm Jason. Really nice to talk to you." Like you actually hear the background noise getting louder. It's called pumping and breathing because every time the dialogue comes back in, that noise gets minimized, but then you stop talking and it can come back up. This is an improperly set compressor. This clarity slider is using our dynamics processor, which again, you can see if I select an individual clip here and we go into our effects controls, you'll see that it has now been applied. And more importantly, this leverages Adobe Sensei technology as well. The hardest thing, and it's the fundamental process of starting compression, is to analyze threshold levels. Threshold, in compressor speak, is the point at which compression or limiting begins. A signal must exceed the threshold for the compressor to even be activated at all. Case in point, this is very difficult to do if you don't know what you're listening for or looking at in terms of this dialogue here. Now, this is another really amazing thing about this. We have this single slider here, which again, seems simplified, right? Seems easy. But as I drag this slider, if you take a look at the dynamics processor there, you can see that it's dynamically adjusting multiple parameters. So again, I'm the first person to say compression on a single slider. Really? Is it going to sound good? Yes. The other thing that this is doing, and you can maybe see it here in the UI, is that it's also performing some downward expansion, which is going to act like a noise gate. So that's what's keeping the dialogue super clean, without artifacts, without noise. And again, you have manual settings. You've got all the presets available here inside of the compressor if you wanted to apply those, but you never have to go to this dialogue. And it's also got a really nice UI where you can see not only the output level, but the gain reduction amount as well.
Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
Okay. Really cool. All right. So that's the clarity slider. Dynamics, using the dynamics processor, absolutely game-changing in terms of improving your audio. All right. Now, again, under clarity, we also have equalization and enhance speech. Now, this will entirely depend on if you think your dialogue needs it. All right. Now, most of the time it does. I'm not going to get too heavy into this. I'll show you maybe a couple quick examples. All right.
I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
All right. So on this particular clip,
Besides,
maybe it needs to be a little warmer, or maybe it needs to be just a little less bright, all right, compared to maybe this voice here.
I didn't live. You got it.
Here, wait, wind it back.
But I didn't get any of the money. Why do I have to pay you if I don't get any of it?
Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts.
I mean, they're pretty similar. Again, I'm being pretty critical here, but there's a little bit more mid-range in this one versus the other one. So this is where you could just start auditioning some of these presets and then again, tap into some of the manual controls to make some changes. All right. So real quickly, and then we'll go to some questions here. So let's go to something like podcast voice. All right. So this is probably going to add a little bit of lower or upper mids, a little bit of warmth. It's also got some upper mid clarity. So that might be too bright. Oh, wait, hold on. I have it on the wrong clip. Sorry, I don't want it on that one. I want it on this one. Very important to make sure you have the correct clip selected if you're doing these independently. All right. So let's go to EQ, background, not background voice. Let's do podcast voice and take a listen here.
Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
All right. Not bad. Let's see what this subtle boost sounds like. I'll start with it off, and then I'll kick it in.
Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
Okay, so that one you can see, it's got an upper mid boost. By the way, this is representing an EQ curve. You're going, what is this squiggly line? It's an equalizer curve. Now, again, you can audition all of these. I might go back to something like the podcast voice. Oh, and here, just so you get the idea, like equalization, maybe I don't get it. So here's like, on the telephone, right? If this were like a telephone conversation scene.
I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
Okay, that's like if the camera was watching the other actor and he was on the phone. I just did a stream about this actually a couple weeks ago. That's how you can achieve that kind of a sound. You've also got things in here like speech enhancement, male, female. I'm not a huge fan of this. I don't know what these conform to, frankly. I don't know what that means. But sometimes it can work and do pretty good things. Let's take a listen. Let's see.
Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, not a huge amount of difference for me. It's okay. Again, you can audition it and play with it. Now, the key around this is, remember I was saying that this one has that upper mid boost. Maybe I don't want that. I like the lower boost. I just don't like that upper mid. I think it's bringing out too much mid-range. This is, again, where I can go into effects controls on this clip, which is still selected. And you can see that what that EQ slider is doing is it's applying our graphic equalizer. So if I click on edit here, now this shows you what it's doing. And if this looks familiar to you, this is like if anybody had, Winamp back in the day, or, if your parents had an old stereo system, or you were an audio nerd and you had a graphic EQ, this is a pretty standard equalizer. 10 bands, meaning 10 different frequencies you can adjust. So in this case, we have kind of our low frequencies, 31 hertz, 63 hertz, 125, 250. Our low mids and mids, 500, 1K, 2K. Our upper mids, 4K. Again, it's only a 10 band, so you only get a one selection here. 8K, and then greater than 16K. So these are your high frequencies. And what you'll see is that there is a boost in those mids, a dB, 1.3 dB and 2 dB at 2 and 4K. So if I drop some of that 4K and play this back.
Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
All right, so you can see as I raised it, it got very, very mid-rangey there. I think dropping it, -8 might be a little extreme, maybe about -6.
Besides, I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
Yeah, and maybe even drop a little bit of 1K, which is right in the mid-range.
I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
All right, about half a dB. All right, so again, you have the ability here to customize the equalization manually via the graphic EQ if you want to. If you like these presets, go with the presets. You've got your amount slider here, right? Same things where we're applying about 50% of that effect, or you can do it manually, or you can use the track mixer and add a parametric EQ or something else to this, which gives you even more control. All right, let's take a look at the chats here real quickly. All right, Brandon McCune. Doesn't the repair changes affect the voice as well? How do you minimize losing those frequencies in the dialogue? So Brandon, yes, so talking about repair, reduce noise. Yes, if you overdo the amount of noise reduction, you can start to introduce artifacts where it starts to roll off too much high end potentially, or some of that mid range. So that's why in the denoiser here, if you know what to listen for. So in the case of this was kind of this was like broadband noise that we're removing. It's really just room ambient sound, not necessarily confined to one frequency range. That's why I left it on the default, which is all frequencies. Now that can be a little dangerous because if you use too much, yes, you might start to minimize some of the highs and some of the clarity in those upper mids. So in that case, you go, all right, well, you know what? The noise that I'm trying to remove is actually more low frequency. And it was, right? It was like street ambient noise. So if you chose this frequency curve instead, that doesn't touch the mid-range, which is the fundamental region of where the voice lives, and it doesn't touch the high range. So you're not going to get any artifacting. You're not going to minimize or attenuate any of those frequencies. The opposite of that, what if it's all high frequency, hiss, whatever, but nothing in the low and mid-range? Then you could choose something like this curve. So that's how you combat potentially destroying. Now listen, if you use too much noise reduction, regardless of what mode you use, you could introduce artifacts. That's just part of the game. So a little goes a long way. Note here, we're using 8%, okay? And that was enough just to take a little bit of that ambient edge off. Remember, as I told you, we're probably, ideally, I would put back in some of that room ambience anyway. So leaving a little bit of noise is okay, depending upon the scene, depending upon the situation, okay? Jan Eric, yes, it was I who removed the Starbucks cup in our tweet. Yes, indeed. And yes, Howard, not for the show, but for our social video. Yeah, no. Yeah. All right. And yes, it was done using content-aware fill in After Effects. So super, super cool. Howard, is Clarity Dynamics also available in Audition? Absolutely. So the exact same essential sound panel is in Audition. So again, if you were to start something here and then open the project in Audition or send it to Audition, which you can do if I select our timeline here, and you can see Edit in Audition Sequence. If you go to, it'll open up Audition for you. If you were to open the Essential Sound panel, all the stuff that you've done in here non-destructively gets sent over there, and that same clarity slider is in there as well. All right. All right, Jan Eric, I dig the U curve for music. Yes. That's a classic, also known as the smile curve. All right. Okay. Very helpful, Brendan. Okay, very cool. All right. So loudness, repair, clarity, EQ. Good. We're done with dialogue. Now, creative reverb, do we need it? No, we don't need it for this. Again, there's enough room ambience here. We're actually trying to dry things out a little bit. So we won't go there. And clip volume, we don't need because Loudness Auto Match handled the volume mismatches for us. Okay, so now this is going to get really interesting. So I'm going to deselect everything. Take a swig of some Java. And now I want to tag those music files, because now we're going to do what I was talking about earlier, which is we're going to automatically have Essential Sound duck the music whenever there's dialogue. So again, there's talking, and then you're going to hear automatically. All right. So we need to tag these files. So let's go ahead and select them together and choose music. And just like the dialogue stuff, this now gives you common things that you would use to process music, including loudness auto matching. Now, I'm not going to do that here. These files are already the way they should be, so I don't need to match those. Why that's really useful, though, is if you've got a timeline or a sequence, or you're doing a story where different scenes have very different types of music, right? So you might have like an intimate scene here, which is kind of dark, ominous, creepy, single notes, bassy. And then it cuts to a scene where, they're like happily sipping on ice cream sodas in a deli or something. Those different types of music may have very different loudness levels. So just like with dialogue, this will take your rock music, jazz music, hip hop music, classical, ominous, dark and dirty, and just make them all about the same loudness, which just makes it a little easier for you to mix and to automatically duck that against dialogue or whatever. All right. So I'm not going to do it here, but the same thing applies. Now we also have duration. This is exactly what you think. This will allow you to adjust the length non-destructively of your audio files. But the one we're going to focus on here is ducking. All right. So I'm going to turn on ducking. Now, when I do that, you'll see that you have 5 options here. What do we want to duck against? So because we've tagged our dialogue as dialogue, By default, this will duck against dialogue clips, meaning that anytime someone is talking, it's automatically going to drop the level of the music if need be. You can duck against music, you can duck against ambience, sound effects, or if you are bringing in content from another place or you just neglected to tag your media, you can choose this last version here. Notice it's a tag with a line through it. It'll duck against clips with no assigned audio type. So you got a lot of flexibility there. And then there are 3 very basic settings to achieve this. Sensitivity, which is effectively your threshold level. It's how soon it detects where it should begin to lower or attenuate music. Then you have the duck amount. Now the default is 18 decibels. That's going to be pretty quiet, all right? It's going to make the music really, really quiet. So we'll probably minimize that to about half. And then the fade time. And the fade time is when it begins to duck the music down, how quickly or how long it takes for it to duck the music down, and then how long it takes to restore it back to its regular level. So at 800 milliseconds, that's 0.8 of a second. That might be a little long, but it's not going to be very abrupt. So it just depends on the scene, on the pacing of the dialogue. So let's do this. I'm definitely going to change the duck amount here. Let's not do 18. Let's go to around, let's do like -9. All right, so just about half. The sensitivity, I think that's probably a little high. We'll need to back it off, but we'll see what it does. So once you have those settings, and you can just try the defaults, right, before you do anything else, I'm going to click on this button here, Generate Keyframes. And when I do that, what happens is it begins analyzing all of that audio, and it's going to generate keyframes for you. And as you can see down below, it has now drawn envelope curves, volume curves, based around where there's no dialogue and where there is dialogue to, again, control the level of that music automatically. All right, so let's wind this back and take a listen.
But Dwayne, I don't even have any of the money. Amy she split and took it all.
Well, I talked to Amy. She came to see me. You see, she's what they call professional, and you're what they call can't win for losing.
She tell you she took it all? She took the whole damn score?
What she did is she paid me what she owed me for her half. And now you're gonna pay me what you
But I didn't get any of the money. Why do I have to pay you if I don't get any of it?
Okay. Oh, now, you know what? I think when I hit duration, I think it's squeezed the, all those clips down there. Hold on a second. Let me see. I may just need to back off here because I think I don't know why it did that to that's very strange that it did that to these files. I don't know why it did that. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay, I'm just going to drag these back in just so that there shouldn't be silence between them. Why did that happen? It should look like this. Hold on, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to copy this. Should be able to paste this in here. Let's replace these. All right. Nope. Okay, bear with me for a second here. Why is it wanting to go up there? I don't want it up there. Strange. There we go. Okay. All right, so now I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to retag this. Music. Ducking. Let's adjust the sensitivity to around 3.8. Let's duck around 9. Let's generate the keyframes. All right, it does its thing beautifully. There we go. All right, and now let's go back to where we were. Some drama here where I can see it doing some movement.
I gave you the tools. I gave you the phones. I gave you the scripts. I told you what to do, and I told you how to do it.
But I don't have the money.
But I don't care.
Why am I doing jazz hands? I'm watching the keyframes, and you can hear that music fading in and out every time they stop talking, right? And that's adding to the drama of the scene, right? Super, super cool. It also seems that we're overall a little hot here, so I might come into my track mixer, and let's drop our master. I'm just going to drop this about 3-4 dB, all right? Now, again, if we wanted to go back to that default duck amount, let's go ahead and select all our music. And let's go to a duck amount of -18, all right? And then regenerate keyframes. Again, it's going to reanalyze everything. It didn't really move anything, but you can see now those drops are way more dramatic, all right? So here, take a listen.
Air. What'd you pay for that sixer?
Okay. Actually, the default wasn't too bad. It kind of almost drew a little bit more focus. It was super subtle. I liked the music a little bit louder, but that's my personal taste. You get the idea. Now, the amazing thing about this, of course, is that what if there was a particular part of the scene where you wanted it to duck even more? All right, like you can see here how it's ramping up.
And took it all.
Well, I talked to Amy. She came to see.
Maybe you don't want to ramp right there. Now, it analyzed that section because, yes, there was no dialogue right there, but I don't like this. Well, these keyframes are all fully editable. So I can simply come in here and I can either delete those keyframes, all right, or I can just reposition or redraw them independently, all right? So you have total flexibility. Now, that being said, if I change some other parameters inside the ducking panel here, and then I generate keyframes, my manual changes are gone. So my typical workflow is, if I'm going to use this, I do the ducking, I listen to the result, I tweak sensitivity and duck amount and fade if necessary. The fade was perfect here. I think that 800 milliseconds, like I said, it depends on the pacing of the dialogue. Because this is kind of, it's not fast, it's mid-tempo and then there's a lot of pausing. That longer fade time really adds to the drama, and it really kind of emphasizes that creepy music. So I'll usually make my settings, generate keyframes a few times to hear options, and then I'll go back in and manually tweak the duck if I need it, right? I usually don't go back to generate again once I get it pretty much all the way there. And that's kind of the amazing power of this, is that to go in here manually, I mean, it may not seem like a big deal, right? There's, after all, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 dialogue clips or something. So yeah, there's 10 instances of me drawing keyframes. But yeah, this is only 1 minute and 30 seconds, And these are fairly long stretches of dialogue. Anything beyond that, you're talking about a lot of time. Here we did it with ducking, auto ducking, in 2 seconds. Versus, it's easily going to take you at least a minute to keyframe all of that, right? So what is your time worth? That's kind of the key to this feature, is what is your time worth to you? I guarantee it's worth a lot more than drawing keyframes manually for an entire scene, when this really does a fantastic job of doing it for you, all right? And always fully editable. All right, super cool. Aunt Pruitt, the hand gestures. All right. Yes, years and years of practice that, my friend. Great to see you. Jan Erik, conductor of the Premier Pro Orchestra. Very nice. And yes, Jan Erik, I have conducted an orchestra. Actually, I studied conducting at university at Berklee College of Music. I blogged about this once. My professor, whom I believe, I don't want to say that he passed away. I think he did pass away a couple of years ago. I think he did, because I think I wrote a blog post about it. I can't remember. His name was George Mansour. He apprenticed under Arturo Toscanini, who is one of the most famous conductors of all time. And he changed my life. He changed the way I thought about conducting and really made me understand just how essential it is, whether it's an orchestra, a 4-piece quartet, or anything. And really, people just assume it's but there's so much more to it than that. And yeah, it's super fun. Anyway, okay. So just checking back here to see if there's any more questions. All right. Jan Eric is asking, I take it it's not safe to upgrade to OS Catalina if you're using various audio plugins and other audio apps, correct? Yes, that is very true. So while there are quite a few providers, both plugin and hardware, that have available drivers and updated software for Catalina, there are still many that do not. So like, for instance, I use Focusrite gear. They have updated drivers for Catalina for some of their hardware. Some are kind of like, it works in Catalina, but some functions are not quite there. So like this main machine here, this is still Mojave, the streaming system, which is just using digital in through another Focusrite. I actually use the Catalina driver there and it works fine. But yes, the plugin thing is a big deal. And that goes for After Effects too. Not all plugin developers have updated for full support for Catalina. So definitely check that before you do the OS upgrade. Okay. Nice. Oh, Jan Eric, wow, Toscanini. I know, right? Super cool. Real deal. All right, my friends. Well, that is the end of the stream. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. We've got Julian Crespo coming up next with the XD Creative Challenge. And then after that, we have my colleague Howard Pinsky, who's going to take you through the XD Masterclass. So until next Friday, right here on behance.net/live, thank you so much for watching. Of course, you'll be able to watch the replays here on Behance on the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube channel. And until then, have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, and of course your weekend, wherever you are in the world. And we will see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.